Welcome to Spooky Ass Shit. I am your host, Eric Dwinnells, and tonight we're going to do something just a little bit different. In a way, I'm going to be my own guest tonight. You know, it's no secret that this show doesn't always come out on an exact schedule. And that's because I am not a professional broadcaster, as you may have noticed if you've listened to the show before. Working man, like so many of you out there in podcast land, all you spookaroos. Maybe not all of you. Maybe some of you are retired or independently wealthy, or just mooches. Anyway, my life keeps me pretty busy between work, job, and other commitments. So, yeah, you know, sometimes the episodes come out a little late, and sometimes they're not recorded exactly in the order that you might think. For example, we recently did an episode about Looney Tunes, and then also the episode with the owner of Count Orlok's in Salem. Now, those episodes were recorded in that order. I did do the episode about Looney Tunes first, but they were actually recorded just days apart. So I recorded the Looney Tunes episode, I put it up after I recorded Count Orlok's episode. So then that episode came out. So basically, this is the first time I've gotten to speak with you since the release of that Looney Tunes episode, and boy oh boy, did you spookaroos have a lot to say about that episode. I want to thank everybody that wrote in to educate me on some of the history that I was missing. I appreciate it. It never hurts to learn something new, and everybody's tone was pleasant, so I appreciate that especially. But I want to let you know, yes, I am aware that these were not made for children originally. I think just about everybody that wrote in mentioned that point. So the Looney Tunes were made to be shorts shown before a movie and not necessarily for children, or perhaps not entirely for children, and they became kids shows later on when they were put in a cartoon schedule on television. But before that, they were intended for mature audiences, which is why you get some of the racy jokes. But even so, I think as a kid, all those kind of jokes pretty much would have gone right over my head. You know, one thing that people didn't talk about, and I kind of wish we did, is the manicurist beautician scene. Is that okay? In the water every hair and the other episode, hair-raising hair, my favorite. Is it still okay to laugh at that? I think it is. Emily and I talked about it on the show, but I didn't hear from any of you what your thoughts were, so go ahead and tell me about that. And you know where a perfect place to tell me about that would be? You know that we have the Facebook group, right? Facebook.com/spookyas. Actually, that's not a group. That's just the page, right? That's the show's Facebook page. But at the suggestion of one of your fellow spookaroos, a woman named Susan from California, she wrote in and said, hey, you know what? I think that people, I'm paraphrasing by the way, would appreciate having a closed group because, you know, we talk about weird stuff sometimes. And if you're a professional person who has clients that might try to look them up either on Facebook or just on the internet and their name might pop up, or if you have judgmental friends and family that might not feel the same way you do about spooky stuff, or if you're trying to get a job and employers are going to Google you, you might not necessarily feel comfortable being in a public group that talks about true crime and ghost stories and sharing all your stories and that kind of thing, where just anybody could see it. So she recommended that I create a closed group. This means that I'm a little unsure on how it works, whether people can see the membership list or not. Facebook actually says it both ways. They say in one part that the public can see who the members are, and then they also say that no one can see who the members are except for the admins and other members. But in any event, what is definitely true is that anything you post in the group can only be seen by other members, not the public. It's not searchable. All right. Now, the thing about the group is it does exist. If you go to facebook.com/spookyas, you will see a link to spookyas spookaroos, or you can just search spookaroos on Facebook. Don't click on the one that's like children's clothing that hasn't been updated in many years. Click on the one that looks spooky. I made a whole new title card. It came out pretty cool. I mean, I basically copied it from a Blue Lightning Photoshop tutorial. But Either way, looks pretty cool. And you can join the group there, and we can have our secret discussions. We've got a few members already, but of course, we're always dying for more. So please, please check that out. There's only a few of us now. True Blue Spookaroo. And I really appreciate those people. We've gotten a couple good conversations started already. Jeez, I can talk. And we're looking forward to even more. And I hope that tonight's episode will spark some conversation. Because what I'm going to do tonight, like I said, I'm going to kind of interview myself here and tell you, because, you listen to the show and you know that I am a skeptic person. I don't really, even though I love to talk about this stuff, I don't really believe in ghosts and monsters and cryptids and all that thing. Not really. Except for aliens. I do believe in aliens. But the other things I need a little bit of convincing on. I don't really believe in them. I'm willing to be shown that I'm wrong, but no proof yet. I don't believe in psychics and all that kind of stuff. But you might think, Eric, you say this, but have you ever, have you never encountered anything that you couldn't explain? Have you never had your own brushes with what some might call the paranormal? And the truth is, yes, I have, as a matter of fact. So tonight, I'm going to talk about those things. And many of them I know that I have talked about on the show before. Usually briefly. I don't think I went into detail on too many of them. But tonight, let this be the definitive telling of each of these stories. So that's what I'm going to do tonight. I'm going to tell my own versions of my brushes with, like I said, what some might consider the paranormal. Couple of ghost stories, couple of maybe empath or psychic moments, those kinds of things. Now, I mentioned the Facebook group, and I really hope that you'll join and you'll tell me your paranormal encounters there. And I also want to tell you about the show's website, spookyas.com or spookyasshit.com. They both take you to the same place, and that is the show's blog page. From there, you can listen to each and every episode, even the episodes that are no longer carried by iTunes. If you dive back in the archives, listen to each and every episode. You can also find pictures sometimes and YouTube videos and other things that might relate to the episode. You can also find our social media links. I'm not so good on Twitter, but you can find us on Twitter at spookyasshit. That's on Twitter. And you can also find me on Instagram, which I have been doing better with. We are also at spookyasshit. And you can like us on Facebook, of course, as I mentioned earlier, at facebook.com/spookyas. Oh, and another thing about the group, Spookaroos. I plan to post some exclusive material there, stuff that I'm not going to post anywhere else, as kind of an incentive and a thank you for the people that have signed up. I've already filmed a video that I'm going to work on editing, maybe, probably not by the time this goes live, but perhaps within the week I'll have the first video up. I give a little tour of something cool that I came across. It won't maybe not say exclusive to the group forever, but that's where I'm going to put it first. So if you want to be among the first to see it, that's where you got to go. And eventually, along the way, there will be other exclusive goodies to be found in the Spookaroos group on Facebook. And by the way, I think this was a really good suggestion that Susan gave us. If you have any ideas of things that we can do, because, honestly, I like to pretend that I'm pretty young, and I'm, relatively young, but I'm not, and I'm not perhaps the most social media savvy person you'll ever meet. So if you have any ideas on what to do, how to raise our profile, how to get more spookaroos, that kind of thing, I'm totally willing and thankful for any help that we can get. So go ahead and hit me up on Facebook through the email at spookyasshit. Spookyasshit@gmail.com. However, whatever floats your boat. All right. So with all that out of the way, let's get to tonight's subject, namely me. Well, okay, me and my paranormal run-ins. Now, I've broken them down not in order of, interestingness, perhaps. Is that the word? No, it's definitely not. It's not a word, first of all. That was several words, but... All right, so I'm going in chronological order here, starting back to the earliest things I can remember and working my way to more present day, okay? Now, this first one I know that I've talked about before, but this is what you might call a premonition that I had. I was very young, maybe 6 or so, maybe even younger than that. But I was in Shaw's, which is a grocery store here in Boston area, with my mom. And I saw this man, and although I don't remember him looking different than other people, when I looked at him, I just sensed something was wrong. And I said, "Mom, what's wrong with that man?" And she looked up, and she was embarrassed because I said it loud enough that he could hear me. And she looked up and she said, "What? Nothing. What? Why? There's nothing wrong. What are you talking about? Don't be silly." And kind of like moved us along, And I looked at him and I said, "Mom, there's something wrong." And she just, quieted me, and we went on shopping. Well, maybe 5 minutes later, we're coming back. We had kind of looped around some of the aisles. And we're coming back, and that same man is on the ground, and he's surrounded by people. And my mom and I see this, and she kind of scurries the cart away, and kind of, we rush past. Probably, I assume she didn't want to scar me with seeing whatever was happening over there. But the point of that is, I was able to look at that man and recognize that something was off. Now, those of you who are into the paranormal might say, "Well, Eric, this is a prime example of you as a youngster having these psychic powers that perhaps now you deny." And, it's very typical that young people are able to kind of tune into these things. And as an adult, you're not. I personally don't think that's the case. I think there's a more logical explanation. And to me, that logical explanation is that as a child, you don't care if it's rude to stare at somebody or look a little bit more closely at somebody, where as an adult, as you go around, you probably don't remember the last person you saw on the street exactly. You might remember a couple details, like, oh yeah, they were wearing blue pants, because you were kind of looking down as you walked past them. But you don't necessarily remember all the little details about them, right? I'm the same way. Most of the time, it's just whatever. But maybe as a kid, I was just looking at this guy a little bit more intensely than my mother was. And that's how I knew, whatever the clue may have been. Maybe he just showed a little discomfort on his face. Maybe he was just a little bit discolored. Maybe there was something funny about his walk. I don't remember anything in particular, but again, this was when I was very young, so I'm not claiming to have a crystal clear memory of the event. I just remember what I remember. And so I think probably that's more what it was that I was able to kind of tune in, and not in a mental capacity, not in a psychic capacity, but just that I was paying more attention to other things than adults normally would. Now, if you're asking me, would I like it to be true that I saw this happening in the future, then absolutely, yes, I would. Of course, I would love to have psychic powers. And I know there's people out there that say, well, everyone has these powers and you just need to train and blah, blah, blah. Well, okay. I'll believe it when I see it. If you've listened to the Psychic Fails episode, you know how I feel about that. Oh, I love psychic fails. It's one of my not so guilty pleasures, watching psychic fail videos. Anyway, that is my first tale of the paranormal, starring me. Are you ready for some possible ghost stories? Again, these are some that I've told before, but I was about to say this will be the definitive telling, and then of course I am marble-mouthed on the intro to it. Let me try that again. This will be the definitive telling. That was better. Okay, so, as I've explained before on previous episodes, my mother was very ill when I was growing up. And she had a condition that affected her breathing. She was on oxygen all the time, 24/7. And late at night, my brother and I, my brother Dan, who's been on the show before, when we went past her bedroom, she always left the door open, and we would look in to make sure that her chest was rising and falling, making sure she was breathing, right? And if she wasn't, or if there was some other problem, one of us would wake the other and we would figure out what to do then. Sometimes it was just a matter of waking her up or just making sure she's okay. Other times it was, hey, we better call 911, and, then the ambulance would come and take care of her, bring her to the hospital more often than not. Anyway, this was kind of a routine that we had, and it wasn't uncommon that this would happen, that we would have to wake one or the other up in the middle of the night. It probably happened at least 2 times a year, I would guess, and more than that even towards the end. The end meaning, of course, that unfortunately my mother did pass away when I was 20 years old. But before that, this was the routine. We'd look in, see if her chest was rising and sinking, and if not, or if there was some other trouble, like, she was sitting up and complaining of some kind of pain or unable to breathe or some other kind of issue, we'd have to wake up the other and figure out what to do. Now, the way that was done was normally they'd just knock on the door and you wake up and, go figure out what to do. When I moved, so there was a bunch of us kids in the house, but in the end it ended up just being me and my brother. But when my sister moved out, she took the bed from her room with her. But now there was this empty room in the house. And before that, me and my brother Dan shared a bedroom. So I got to move into my sister's room. But there was no bed. So I had to take the top bunk from the bunk bed set that we'd had since we were kids. I was in high school by this point, but I took that bunk bed set and made a little loft bed for myself, and underneath had a little, seating area and had the TV down there and everything. It was kind of cool. I had a beaded curtain hanging down from it because I was super cool. It was basically like Greg Brady's room on the Brady Bunch, remember? Like when he got his own room and it was all Johnny Bravo and shit. That's what my bedroom was like, except it was more musical theater themed. I'm going to post a picture because don't forget I was way into music, well, still am, way into musical theater, but I was much more willing to wear it on my sleeve in high school and more devout. So as you'll see from the picture, my door was actually painted to look like the Tommy poster, the Who's Tommy, because I loved the Who and I loved Tommy and I loved Broadway. So when the two things came together, I was especially obsessed with that show. So my bedroom door was painted yellow with the Tommy logo running down it. Again, I'll post pictures, but that's what my bedroom door looked like from the inside. Okay, so I'm up in my bunk bed, and it's late at night. No idea what time, but late at night. And I'm sleeping, but I hear sudden, rapping at my door. It's knocking, but it's pounding, and it's rapid, and it's like bam, 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 bam. So I wake up, and I'm thinking, oh shit, Mom must really be in trouble. Dan's been trying to get my attention, and there's something big going on here. I better go find out what's going on. So I jump down from my bed, and I go to my door, and I open it, and no one's there. So I go to my mom's room, which is just down the hall, and she's lying quite comfortably in bed, breathing fine, no problem. Her oxygen tank is flowing. I can hear it clicking. I can see her body moving up and down. She's definitely breathing, no problems. I go to Dan's room to check on him. Lights are out. He's asleep. So I'm just like, oh man. What the hell was that? But I just kind of pass it off and go back to bed. The next day I asked Dan about it, and of course he's like, no, I don't know what you're talking about. I didn't get out of bed at all. So it was just kind of a weird incident. I'll get into possible explanations later, but of course one that jumped in my mind even then was there was a ghost, right? And even then so for those of you who don't know, for non-long-time listeners, when I was a kid, I super believed in ghosts and everything paranormal. Not only did I believe in it, but I was afraid, very afraid, I was going to encounter it. But that was when I was real little. When I got a little older, it kind of went away, and eventually it faded away completely. But still in high school, I probably had some suspicion that there may actually be ghosts. And so that was a consideration in my mind. But that's not the only strange thing that happened from that bedroom. One night, again, late in bed, and top bunk, all that, fast asleep, and it was just after midnight. I remember that. And my radio comes on. Now, this is back in the day of CDs. And not only CDs, but I had what at the time was the coolest thing ever, a 5 CD changer. Yeah, that's right. I had a 5 CD changer stereo unit. For the kids out there, that means you could put 5 CDs in it at a time and just click on whichever one you wanted and the machine would play it. And that was the shit back at the time, right? Now, from that CD player, this particular night, came at full volume the strains of the Nirvana song, Lithium. This is off the Nevermind album. And I know that I've brought this one up before because I remember looking for the picture of the back of the CD to note that Lithium is not the first track on the CD. I forget what number it is, but I think it's like 5 or 6. But this is kind of important to the story because the 5 CD changer, you could set it as an alarm and you could pick like what CD you wanted, but I don't believe you could pick the track number or the volume setting. I mean, maybe you could have done that. I don't know. But this thing just started playing right after midnight, full volume, track number 5 on CD number 3 or something like that, something random like that. And I just remember my mom screaming like, "Turn it down!" You know, and I am like rushing to explain like, "Hey, I didn't turn it on. I don't know what the hell. I don't know what this is." So, of course, my rational mind says this is just some kind of mechanical malfunction and, you know, the alarm was set somehow and this is how it triggered and this is, you know, it just came on at this random time and it played this random track because that's what it was, you know, somehow set up to do by accident. But again, it's not the first song on the CD. And it's not the CD that I was listening to at the time. I remember I was listening to something else earlier in the day, so it had to change tracks or CDs to play that song off that CD. And again, I never listened to it at full volume. I lived in a tiny house. My mom would have lost her mind if she heard me playing music that loud. So, really strange. Also, by the way, if you don't know the song Lithium by name, that's the one that starts, "I'm so happy 'cause today I found my friend. They're in my head." It's not a perfect impersonation, but you get the idea, right? But anyway, the chorus to that song, or I guess I don't know if it's the chorus or the bridge, but anyway, it gets a little creepy there. The rest of it sounds kind of plaintive and, you know, almost cheery, but in a kind of a sad, it's cheery in kind of a sad, morose way. But anyway, it's a weird song, and I always refer to it now as the song that my ghost played for me. And I mentioned these things to my mom, and I said, "Mom, you know, it's kind of weird. Strange things keep happening in the room like this." And honestly, there were probably other little things that popped up that I'm forgetting, but these are the 2 big incidents that stick in my mind. And then my mom says, she's like, "Oh, you know, before you were born, your grandmother used to live with us, and she lived in that room. And she used to say that she saw a ghost in that room." And I was like, "Bitch, what?" And, I mean, obviously I didn't say that to my mom, but that's, you know. And she was like, "Yeah, she said she used to see like a colonial soldier in the room." And I couldn't believe that she had not told me this information before. Like, this should be something you mention before I move into the bedroom, right? Not to mention the whole gates of hell thing, if you remember that old gem from the episode that Dan was actually on, where Dan had to be, at a younger point in my life, convinced that the gates to hell were located in my house. But anyway, enough freaky shit going on in the house, right? So, fast forward a little bit. Now I'm in college, and I'm going to the Boston Conservatory, which is a music, theater, and dance school. It's a 4-year, it's an actual college. It's not like you get a certificate. It's an actual, real deal college. Now it's part of the Berkeley School, so it's the Boston Conservatory at Berkeley. But when I was there, it was just the Boston Conservatory, or BOCO for short, as the cool kids used to call it. We couldn't just call it BC, because that was Boston College, so we had to call it something. So we all thought it was silly, but BOCO was what it was. Anyway, there are certain requirements that you are required to do at the school, right? And one of them is that you need to work on the crew of a show. Crew is the people that work backstage. So, of course, we're all there to study theater, if you're on my track, and that's what we want to do. But you got to pay your dues. So you got to learn about the backstage process. You got to learn appreciation for everybody that works backstage. You need to participate in crew. And they just kind of randomly assign you a job. So I was put on the costume crew of a show. Now, this doesn't mean that I was, sewing costumes and all that. That's a different job. My job was when I had to sit backstage in case there was a problem. And if a problem arose, then I had to help, a problem with the costumes, then I had to help with it. And otherwise, I had to sit back there and wait and wait and wait for the show to be over. And then when it was over, I would take the costumes from the actors and spray them with Febreze and hang them back up in the correct order. That was my job. But what this meant was that the other people working on the crew, especially the costume crew, waiting with me for the show to end, most of the time, because there was no problem with the costumes during the show most of the time, we just had a lot of time to sit and chill. 2.5 hours, generally, to sit and chill while we waited for the performance to be done so we could Febreze the costumes and hang them back up. So, I have found that one thing that people always like to talk about is ghost stories, paranormal stories. And that's why I started this podcast. But it's also what we started talking about one night while we were in the basement of this old, 100+ year old theater building. And I was telling my classmates about this situation with my house and the rapping on the door and the, music playing and all that. And I was telling them, I'm like, yeah, it's kind of weird because this stuff happened, with a little bit of regularity for a while, and then it just stopped. And I haven't had anything like that since. And they're like, oh, that's really weird, whatever. So that was in the early fall of my freshman year. Then I'm home for Thanksgiving break. And my brother comes to me, brother Dan, and he says, hey, this is kind of weird, but have you been coming into my room and turning on my TV late at night? And of course the answer was, no, I had not. There are some problems with the story as my mom relates it, the whole colonial soldier thing. First of all, Ashland as a town, the town I grew up in, Ashland, Massachusetts, was not established until well after the American Revolution. And before it really became a town, there wasn't a ton going on out in that, way. Everything was more Boston-based. We're not too far from Boston, but there wasn't a ton of activity going on out there. So it's unlikely that a colonial soldier would be haunting a random spot in Ashland, Massachusetts, which did not see a lot of action during that time. But who knows? Who knows? Maybe he was just passing through for some reason and something happened. I don't know. But that was the story as my grandmother told it, apparently. Now, of course, I think by the time I was living in the room, I think my grandmother was still alive. She was in a nursing home with Alzheimer's, and we didn't go to see her too often because it usually upset her. She didn't recognize us, and she would just get mad that there were these, to her mind, strangers in the room. Autism. Got autism on the brain from day job. Alzheimer's is a terrible, terrible thing. But anyway, the only other likely candidate for perhaps a haunting that I can think of would, of course, be my dad, who had passed away many years before when I was just a very small child. but I feel like if he had been a ghost and able to haunt the family or stick around the family, he would have found better ways of expressing himself than knocking on the door or playing grunge rock really loud. I don't think he would have been a fan. I believe he was a country guy. I remember coming home from church. He would never come to church with us, and he would be watching like country music videos on television, and I'd be like, turn on wrestling, which we did, All American Wrestling. Anyway, moving on to more perhaps psychic abilities. Now, family members can be very close, and sometimes it seems like they can read each other's minds. Perhaps that is what happened here. Perhaps the bond between brothers is so strong that my brother was able to take a peek inside my mind, or maybe I was able to send out vibes, or whatever you want to call them, to him to let him know, hey, something's going on. Here's the story. It was about 10 years ago. Actually, almost, I don't remember the exact day, but it was in August, yeah. August of 2008, so about 10 years ago. I was going through a very, very, very bad breakup. I was totally in love with this woman. We had lived together for 4 years. We had opened our own theater company together in Arlington, Massachusetts. It was successful, by the way. Things were going well at the time. And everything seemed great and totally happy. Life was going in a really good direction. And then she cheated. Now, of course, not to get too into it, but she is the villain of the story. She did cheat on me. Now, I'm not claiming that I was a perfect person. There are issues with me that I can understand where, after a while it might get a little old. You might want a little more adventure. You might want something a little bit different. I understand all that. But the bottom line is you don't cheat on people. If you're done with somebody, you let them know in an appropriate and adult manner. You don't cheat on people, okay? That's my advice to you. Anyway, she did cheat, and it was very blatant. Anyway, we don't need to go into that whole story, but it was very, very bad, and I was shattered, basically. But the problem was, it started with her not coming home on certain nights. And now, in my family, being late is one thing, but being late without notifying the person that's waiting for you is a whole nother, because my whole family remembers waiting up for my dad to come home on the day that he died, and he obviously never came home. And we were waiting, and then, police show up, and then the priest shows up, and then my dad had been a firefighter, so the firefighters show up, and I'm just a little kid, and everyone's telling me to go back to bed or try to go to sleep or whatever, and I'm not getting the full story. So that is something that's in my brain forever. I will worry about you if you tell me you're going to be somewhere at a certain time and you are not there at that time without an explanation. Call and say, hey, I'm running a little bit late. Everything's fine. Stuck in traffic. Whatever the situation may be. Call and tell me that info. I'm totally good. But if you just leave me hanging, I'm not good. So if I live with you and you're supposed to come home around 10 o'clock and you don't show up till 4 o'clock in the morning, that's an issue. But let's not forget, I'm young, I'm in love, I don't want to assume the worst, so I'm thinking there's, some explanation. I'm buying whatever bullshit she's telling me. But anyway, it started with her not coming home. But I'd be waiting up all night, literally sick to my stomach, literally having issues that I need to run to the bathroom to deal with. And because of this, I would call out of work the next day. And it kept happening on Monday mornings. Not coincidentally, she had band practice on Sunday nights. I'll just say that. And so for like 3 Mondays in a row, I called out. So then the final time happened, and it was a big blow up. It was a whole thing. But it was officially over. And this happened to be a Friday, actually. And or I guess that would be a Thursday going into a Friday. But I just knew that I couldn't call out again. I'd been out so much. I was going to get fired if I kept this up, right? So my heart was shattered. We'd officially broken up, and my heart was shattered, and I was the rawest nerve. Like, I had to be so careful. I had to excuse myself like 3 different times to like run to a bathroom and like gather myself so that I could face the day properly. And through all this, towards the end of the day, with about an hour left in the workday, my brother Dan shows up at the front desk. He has never before come to see me at work, and he has never since come to see me at work. I did not call him. I did not text him. He did not know that I had broken up my relationship. Well, she had broken up our relationship. And, yeah, he didn't know this. He just popped in and said oh, I thought we could grab dinner or something. And again, it doesn't sound so weird for a brother to come visit another brother, but he's never done it before nor since. Just this random day when I was falling apart and really needed somebody because I was going to go home to an empty house, right? That still weirds me out every time that I think about it. And I would really like to think that it was the bond between 2 brothers. Also, he doesn't live in town. It's not like he lived down the street or something. He lives, and I think even at this time, he lived a good 40 minutes away. He lived in Norwood, and I was working in Ashland, my hometown. And that's about 40 minutes apart from each other, if not an hour. So it was really weird that he just showed up on that particular day. I would love to believe that that was some kind of psychic connection. And, who knows? Maybe it was. I don't have another explanation for it other than coincidence, but it does seem like a pretty big coincidence. Again, never before, never since. Just that one time, 10 years ago, he showed up. And we did go out to dinner, and I'm sure that I was barrels of fun for him to listen to as I choked out the story and, basically was probably a lump for the next... I don't know. It messed me up for a long time, I'll tell you that one. Breakups are no fun. If you're going through one right now, just know this kind of thing happens. You'll get through it. Years from now, it won't even matter. She doesn't matter now. None of that matters. Except, I'm sure it damaged me somewhere psychologically. And, maybe I got some trust issues or something like that. But the actual, situation, I don't think of her every day. It's fine. It's, that's life. You're going to get through it. You'll get through it. All right, 2 more quick ones, and they are also both set at work. For those of you who are new to the show, I do work in human service. I work with adults with disabilities, and I help them integrate into the community and find jobs and that kind of thing. Now, a couple years back, I had a client, which is what we call the people that we take care of. There's, other companies use other names and whatever. Everyone's trying to be PC, but to me, they're paying us to do them a service, and that makes them a client. It also sounds professional and respectful, so that's why I like to say client myself. But anyway, I had a client who we will call Jeff for the purposes of this story. And Jeff was new to my group, and he was a really cool guy. He was interested in magic. He liked to look up magic tricks on YouTube. So any magic tricks that I know, which some people know that I will perform the occasional magic trick here and there, for the most part, I learned those because of Jeff, because I was helping him look up these videos and watching them with him, and then helping him practice these tricks. All simple stuff, I'm not going to be a great stage magician or anything like that, but he was into some really cool stuff. He'd probably be a spookaroo if I was still in contact with him. I would have him listen to the show, but he left the program, unfortunately. But before he did, there was we had moved buildings maybe 5 months before, and a lot of the stuff from my room was still in boxes in the closet. We just hadn't gone through them. And there was a day that Jeff was out, and it was a movie day, which we used to have. And it was once in a while we'd pop in a video, and they were usually like some kind of educational video, and then we'd do a little pop quiz after. And we'd seen all the videos that we had out before, so I was like trying to find something. I'm like, what's something we haven't seen in a while, or you know what? Let me look at those boxes in the bottom of the closet that we haven't touched. Now, we hadn't touched these boxes since Jeff came to the program. He was new to the program, and we hadn't gone through these boxes since he came to the program. So there's no way he knew what was in these boxes. Probably didn't even know the boxes existed. And again, this was on a day when he was not at the program. So I'm looking through and I find this videotape about Egypt, ancient Egypt. And I say, oh, you know, this one might be interesting. I like Egypt, and the guys might find it interesting. Let's try this one. So we pop it on, and I'm marking down little things that I can use on the quiz, you know, at the end. Just a little, you know, verbal pop quiz to make sure the guys are paying attention and that they learned a little something. And one of the things that they mentioned on the video was that for a long time, there was a rumor that Napoleon's army shot a cannon and hit the Sphinx, and that's how the Sphinx lost its nose. That's not true, by the way, but that was a story that had gone into lore many years ago. And I just remember thinking, oh, that's really interesting. I didn't even mark it for the quiz. I just remembered that fact myself. Now, the video ends. I take it, I put it back in the box, put it back in the closet. The day ends, everyone goes home. Next day comes, everyone comes in, and we volunteer at Meals on Wheels, right? So Jeff is here now, and he comes out to the van with us, and we're all getting in the van to do Meals on Wheels, and Jeff gets in, and out of the blue, just completely randomly, he says, hey, Eric, did you know that for a long time people believed that Napoleon shot the nose off the Sphinx? And I looked at him and I said, why did you say that? And he got like nervous because he thought I was upset with him for some reason. He's like, what? I don't know. What? I'm sorry. And I'm like, no, you don't need to be sorry. You didn't do anything wrong. But why did you say that just now? And he's like, I don't know. It popped in my head. I don't know. And I said, because we watched a documentary about Egypt yesterday and they mentioned that, but you weren't here. So why did you say that? How did you know? Why did you say that? And he goes, that's really weird. It's like, yeah, it's really weird. And we just kind of looked at each other for a minute and then said, okay, let's just go on and do Meals on Wheels. So that is a really odd happening. I don't have an explanation other than just coincidence. And, you know, statistically, maybe these things happen more often than we think they do, or more often than we pay attention. But it does seem really weird. All right, last one. And again, this one is set at work. Now, I told you what I do for work. I do direct care in human service. Believe it or not, you're not paid all that well to do that kind of work. Even with all the experience that I have, even with all the good reviews that I get from my clients and their families, it's just not a very high-paying field. Even if I was the CEO of the company, you're not making tons and tons of money in human service. But it's a very rewarding job, and that's why I stay. Problem is, the real world uses money. And actually, right around the time I started this podcast, I went out and bought all the equipment that I needed to do the podcast, with the exception of the computer, which I already had. I had a Mac laptop. But literally, the next day, I dropped the Mac top, and the screen shattered, completely unusable. And I just thought, well, fuck. I spent $700 on microphones and an interface and whatever else I needed, and now the computer doesn't work. And of course it does. You just have to plug it into the HDMI into a TV. It's a pain in the ass, but that is how we record episodes most of the time now. Because I'm just too cheap to get it fixed. But anyway, at the time I thought I was going to get it fixed, and I was like, man, I really need money. And so in human service, like I said, you don't get paid a lot. So what you do is you try to find respite jobs that you can do on the side. Respite jobs mean taking out a person, usually one-on-one, and kind of being their buddy and doing whatever they need done. Some people need help at home. They might need help with their regular daily life. Other people just need a little help, maybe if they want to go clothes shopping or something like that. And other people just need someone to hang out with sometimes, and these are things that you can get paid for. It's called respite work, and a lot of human service workers need to do these kind of jobs to make ends meet, because the regular paycheck barely covers the expense of living most of the time. So that was what I had been doing. I had one respite client for 16 years. I would see him every Wednesday night. And then he moved out of state. So that was a big hurt to my finances. I've been with this guy for 16 years, counted on that money, and now it was gone. And I had this computer to fix, and I was really bumming. And I was delivering Meals on Wheels once again, and, going through the route and everything. But in my mind, I'm thinking, man, I need money. Man, I really need a new respite job. How could this happen? What am I going to do? How am I going to find somebody new? And we finished delivering Meals on Wheels. I walk into work, and in the lobby is the family of another client that I used to work with years ago, but I hadn't worked with for many years. But they're standing there, and they say, "Hey, are we glad to see you? You're just the man we came to see." And I said, "Oh, what? What's going on?" And they're like, "Well, we want to talk to you privately." So we talked privately, and they say, "Well, we wanted to know if you'd be interested in doing respite with, the client, whose name I won't mention." And they wanted me to start right away, and they wanted to pay me actually almost triple what I was making with my other regular client. So that was very strange too. Now that sounds like an answered prayer, right? If you were a religious person, you would say, "Hey, get down on your knees and thank the Lord because the Lord sent this to you." Now, I do admit that this is a very strange occurrence, seemingly. On the other hand, as I've pointed out before, I remember, and still have many times, where I've thought, man, I really need money, and nobody was waiting to offer me a job or give me money or whatever the situation may have been. That happened way more often than this one time when somebody was there waiting to offer me a job. So you take that one for what it's worth. But anyway, I still appreciate it. So those are my stories so far of things that have happened to me that might be considered some form of paranormal. I know none of them are particularly that juicy. I didn't come face to face with a ghost. I never saw a Bigfoot or a Wolfman or anything like that. But if you have stories like that, go ahead and write in, and maybe I'll read them on a future edition of the show. Once again, I want to ask you to please take a moment and subscribe, rate, and review on iTunes or YouTube or SoundCloud or wherever else you might be listening. I really appreciate it. It really keeps the show going, keeps me motivated, knowing that there's people out there who are enjoying it, and I'm not just rambling for no reason here on this microphone, because I can talk to myself all day long. I don't need a microphone to do it. And please check out the webpage, spookyas.com, spookyasshit.com. Don't forget to join that Facebook group. You can like us at Facebook on facebook.com/spookyas, and you can join the group by clicking the link there, or just going on Facebook and searching for Spookaroos. You want to join that group. Exclusive content, fun commentary. I'm on there at least once a day. I come and check and see if anyone's posted anything, if there's new members that want to join. So it is a closed group, meaning that I can't just invite you to join it. You have to click. And you need to be approved by the administrator, which right now is me. But don't worry, you will be approved. It's just so that the public can't see the posts. That's the only reason it's closed. So you'll be approved. You don't need to go through any process or answer questions or anything like that. Just need to ask, and you will be let in, and you will know the secret information that only the true blue spookaroos know. And hopefully this is a perfect episode for that kind of thing, because we hope that, I hope that you will share your own stories of brushes with the paranormal. And again, maybe we'll read them on a future episode. So please do that. Check out the Instagram at spookyasshit. And until next time, don't be afraid.